Hi, my name is Rubens. I was born in Uruguay and arrived in Australia in 1970, some 53 years ago. I was 14 at the time and having lived here 53 years, this is my country. Just as it is yours, whether you were born here or whether you arrived here. I love this country, and the reason that I am producing this video is because things just got very real. The future of our society is at stake with the referendum vote. Now, this is largely aimed at the no votes, simply because I believe that as much as you're entitled to your opinion and entitled to vote along what your opinion tells you to do, looking at social media over the past few months since the announcement of the referendum, what I see is a lot of misinformation. I'll give you a couple of examples of that. Okay, if you go on social media, you will see people that will say the land of Australia belongs to every Australian. That's not true. You don't own your next door neighbour's land. You don't own Cabbie Station. You don't own Kakadu. You don't own Arnhem Land or the Torres Strait Island community land. You don't. We don't. Okay? There's only one way you can, well, actually two ways, that you can own land in this country, and that is you either buy it or you inherit it. Now, you've got to understand that and accept that as a fact. That is a fact. You can't go onto Cabbie Station and have a rave party. You can't, because the owners of that land say you can't. Okay, now I might be wrong. They could invite you there, but theoretically speaking, it is their decision, not yours. An owner has decision over his own land. We don't. We don't have the decision power of what goes on in Aboriginal lands that that the people there have been looking after for thousands of years. Now, there's another example of what goes on, and it's intentional. Now, you have heard of, and maybe you have said it, this voice referendum will divide the nation. Well, you might not appreciate this, but Australian people have been divided along racial lines since the day that Captain Phillip set foot on Sydney Cove. They didn't arrive here with the intention of gathering the current population and making them one with the people that came off those boats. They didn't. What they did was chase them off their land, because they thought, we can grow a farm there. It's got water, right? And the people that were here first, some of them fought for their land and got killed in the process. Now, this is not a thing that you should be ashamed of or even feel any guilt about. We can't do anything about what was done 140 years ago. It's not it's not up to us. But we need to accept that is the reality for Aboriginal people. Now, you would have grown in a family home, I hope, and in that family home you would have heard stories of Grandpa or the uncle that went to war or the guy that represented Australia at rugby league or cricket or whatever. And these are all stories that you would have received and you would have enjoyed. Now compare that to the story that Aboriginal children have been having for the last 100 or so years. When the story of their people is told, they can't possibly enjoy that. Nobody can. We couldn't. Right? Now, people in the no camp, I dare say, know this. Okay? But they're fighting against something that they fear. They fear Aboriginal people having more power, more rights than they have. Well, that again is comes through misinformation, because they're not getting any extra rights that we already have. Okay, if you think about it, or if you know your history, you will know that Australian unions were established in the 1800s, and they represented workers. They represented workers to the governor, to the employers, right? So they had a voice. They elected a delegate, I suppose, like they do now, and they would have gone to these people that employed them and said, look, our workers need this, that, or the other. That was the voice. Now, the people that employed them may or might not have agreed with any of it, okay? And that is precisely what the voice will get. The voice will get a chance to get into Parliament, state what it is that they want, and then await the response of the Parliament. Now, the Parliament can agree to it all, can agree partly to it, or just disagree with the whole thing. Now, the other thing that pops its head up every now and then is that this will always end up in the High Court. Now, the High Court is a black letter institution. The government is charged with enacting laws. The court is charged with ensuring that those laws are adhered to. Okay, so if a representative of the voice goes into Parliament and says, we want X, Y, or Z, okay, the Parliament might just say no. Now, if that person then goes to the High Court and says, the Parliament didn't do as I asked, right? Now, the judges will base the decision on two things. Were you given access to speak your piece? Yes. Good. Did they listen to you? Yes. Good. The Constitution is satisfied. It's been lived up to. The Parliament does not have to agree with what the First Nation people want. The other thing that happens as far as access to Parliament is a little bit murky. People like the CEOs of Santos, the gas mining company, the Federal Australian Farmers Federation, developers, people that want to buy a port from us, they have access to Parliament. But you'll never hear what it is that's discussed. You only hear the outcome, right? When Santos got $4 billion to help them build a carbon capture and sequestration, CCS, we don't know what went on. It wasn't discussed on the floor of Parliament. No politician, no member of Parliament said yeah or nay to that. It was a minister, people from our government departments. Now, did Santos go in there and say, approve this, give us a $4 billion, we'll give you $500 or $600 million for your election campaign next time around, and I don't know, maybe we can put a couple of dollars on a Cayman Island account. We don't know. These are all suppositions, and probably none of that ever happened. But the point is that it is a possibility, because money corrupts. Right? We've got plenty of examples of money corrupting. You've got Christian Porter, $1 million legal bill, a blind trust pays for it. Who is the blind trust? We don't know. We should, but we don't. Okay? So, in essence, they bought a politician. Because if somebody gives you $1 million, they want something back for it. I'm sure you don't give $1 million to anyone without something coming back. You know, I mean, we're not stupid. People are stupid. They just don't give away money for the sake of giving away money. Companies don't do it, CEOs don't do it, lobbyists don't do it, right? They want something in return. All right, so the government that accepts donations like that, or the parties that accept donations like that, are willing to sell their position in Parliament, right? They're there to do the bidding of those who pay. So this is what The Voice is like. Individuals, companies going into the Parliament House, maybe, right? It may be an out-of-the-way restaurant, for all we know, and talk to the ministers or the officials from some government department and come up with a deal. We don't hear what the deal is. 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, whenever, right? The minister responsible will stand up in Parliament and say, I'd like to announce that X, Y, and Z is going to do this job, and we are going to support him with X number of dollars. Now, take away the money that people like Santos will give back to the Liberal Party in this case, but to any government, the Labor Party isn't clean on this. You know, they have done some deals that are not quite what they should be. Okay, now take The Voice for instance, right? The things that I am saying now, if the Labor Party, Anthony Albanese, if he was fair income about this and really go full Monty on trying to get this through, he would be saying the things I'm saying. It wouldn't have to be me saying this. It would be someone that, you know, of high station with the power to convince people of the facts. Okay, and this is where we're at now. The reason I'm putting this video forward, right, is because the word racism has come into it. Now, as I said, I came here in 1970. I wasn't a new Australian to most people that saw me. I was a warg. You know, that's what they call me, a warg. Worse still, I play warg ball, which made me 2 other things: a pufta or a Sheila. Take a pick. There you go. That was Australia in the 1970s. Okay, has it changed much? No. In the 1970s, I also learned another word which I thought was really, really bad once I understood what it meant when it was explained to me. I learned the word boom. B-O-O-N-G, boom. And when I said, what does that mean? It's the sound Aborigines make when you hit him with your bull bar. And I thought, that is just so, I mean, I was 14, 15 maybe at that time. And I thought, what on earth? Where do these people come from that think like that? Well, I would suggest that the nail bite for some people, but I'll leave that alone. It's just to say that The Voice will divide us. I think it's a scare campaign more than anything. We're already divided. There are racists among us, right? And you got to keep in mind that children aren't born racist. They don't hate at age 3, 4, 5, 10. Okay? They learn that racism. They learn to hate. They learn to deride and diminish people. They do that at the dinner table. That's where the learning comes from. If not there, at the barbecue, when all the mates get together and joke about bulls or whatever else they want to joke about that is offensive to most people. So kids grow up thinking it's normal. Now it's not so much now. I think that's now dissipated considerably. But people my age, I'm 67 years old, have a lot to answer for when it comes to racism in this country. And I'm sure some of you will be offended by that. It doesn't matter whether you're offended or not, it's a fact. Now it might not have been you, particularly, your neighbor, your cousin, your brother, your father, whoever introduced racism at the home, at the dinner table, is responsible for what we have today, because their children pass that on to their children, and they are passing it on to their children. I mean, why would a 16, 17-year-old be racist? He has no experience in life as such. He's not gone out there to earn a living and lost a job to an Aboriginal person, right? Or won a job over an Aboriginal person. But he's still racist. Ask him about this or that, or ask her about this or that, and he'll come up with a derision that he learns in the home amongst adults. Right, so now the other thing that people are saying is that this is permanent. Yes, of course it's permanent. Constitution is permanent. Okay? But if it works as it should do, which is a community, or various communities, but a people that just want a fair crack of the whip, right? They want to go into Parliament and say, look, our children are sitting in 40-degree heat, we need air conditioning. We don't want a committee to decide that. We want Parliament to look at the facts and say, yes, of course I need air conditioning. So the responsible minister should stand up and say, I will arrange for this, it will be there within the next 2 months. Fully air-conditioned school. It should happen like that, because it happens in Chatswood in Sydney, a wealthy, highly Chinese populated area. It happens with them, but why isn't it happen with our Aboriginal children? It's just not right. It's just not right. Not that the Chinese shouldn't get that. They can afford to because most of them are working, they're educated, some are in business. They can afford to help the school put up the air conditioning. But what can Aboriginal families that live a subsistence, really? I mean, compared to what, like, I'm on a pension. Okay, I'm my father's carer. I'm on a father's pension. I couldn't live on it. So at 67, I went off and got a job that I used to do up until 1994, and that's drive buses. I'm doing that in Sydney, in Brisbane now. I did that in Sydney. I did it in Newcastle. Okay, so I can do that because I'm fit. At 67, my biggest worry at the moment now is not that I'm now getting enough money to meet the bills that we have, the bills that we all have. I'm worried about my father. I have to arrange for aged care for him. He needs to be assessed. People will come and help him out, and I know that they do fantastic work because my mother died of Alzheimer's, and the people that helped my sister look after mom were absolutely brilliant. And I expect that the people that would come and look after my dad when I'm at work would do similarly. Those people are gold to our society. We should praise them every step they take. But that's a by the by. Now I've got notes here, and I'm trying to keep it all flowing. The important thing that we have here is that, okay, it is a permanent thing. Okay, it is a permanent thing. But Wouldn't it be great if it was permanent and then it worked, and it worked well? Okay, a civil debate in Parliament, a civil way of producing a proposal to Parliament. There are not going to be thousands of Aborigines, landing in Parliament. The Voice is going to have 24 people, 2 from each state, and it will include youth. It will include women. Now, we hardly ever hear the voice of women in societies where domestic violence is an issue. We don't hear the words of the youth in those communities, where getting a job may or may not be easy. Mostly it is not. Now, I travel up to the Northern Territory, via North Queensland, and what I saw was resilient people that will have a go. They were fixing roads in 40-degree heat. Okay, so that white fellows like me that come up to get away from the cold of the south had good roads to be on. But they go home, and they don't go home to the homes we go to. So we need to have a system where every person, whether you're a billionaire or whether you are one of the poorest, living in one of the poorest suburbs in an inner city or out in the bush, a system that gives you the opportunity to put your case to the people that we elect and pay over $250,000 a year to look after us and to govern for us. Not for businesses, not for investors, for us. The ones that get out every morning, go to work, make money, go and spend it in the shops, that keep companies that supply the shops going. We need to have access to that. Now, it is, as I said, permanent, and as you obviously, some of you anyway, fear. It's a permanent situation where this voice will always be there. But what if it works so well that farmers decide we want a voice in Parliament? We don't want to negotiate with some lackey at some government department. We want to be out there and on the floor of Parliament putting our case forward. And what about if all other industries, sporting bodies and all the rest of it, they just go to Parliament and say, this is what we need. We're not getting this, they're getting that. How come it's so unfair? Make it fair for us as well, right? Now, this is all dreamland, right? It can happen, it should happen, but probably won't. Not in my lifetime anyway, right? But who would have thought that the voice was going to be in my lifetime? And this is an opportunity that, I have children. I want them to have an opportunity to live in a society that it treats everybody equally, gives everybody an opportunity, regardless of color, regardless of where they came from, right? Because we have demonized groups of people for way too long. It was Aborigines when I got here. Okay, Australia's history is one of trying to breed out Aboriginality in Aboriginal children. This is why they ended up with white families and in children's homes. People, governments took children away from Aboriginal households. Now, they might have had good reason to do that. I don't know. I have no idea. But I know that I fought very, very, very hard when I had my first divorce. I have had 2, so I'm not real good at the marriage game. I fought really, really hard when somebody said, you can't have access to your daughter. I fought hard enough to represent myself in the family court and win custody of my daughter. I do not give my children up. And why should Aborigines give theirs up? It's It's just wrong. That's it. It's wrong. Now, all of these things that the voice will ask for, again, to repeat myself, will happen in Parliament. This is the wonderful thing about Parliament. It doesn't require reporters to avoid reporting on things. It doesn't require reporters reporting on things. You cannot hide what you say or what you submit to Parliament. There's this thing called Hansard, okay? We can read it, right? We can hear it. You know, if you happen to want to watch Parliament when the voice is, you know, doing his stuff, you can, right? You will be able to. And then we'll make a decision, individually and collectively. That group of Aboriginal people that have come from that community seek this. That group seeks something else. You know, collectively they all seek the one thing. It might be housing, it might be education, it might be healthcare, right? It might be job opportunities. It might be a number of different things. Okay, and then you have Parliament saying thank you very much for your proposal. We will study your proposal and we'll come back to you. I don't know how long it will take. It might take a month, it might take half a year, but they will come back. They have to, okay, because the Constitution will say you listen and you have to come back with a response, whether it's yeah or nay. A response will be needed, and then you and I will sit back, read all of this stuff, listen to all this stuff, and you make up your mind whether the Parliament acted as it should have, right? If you have, okay, I'm going to name her because she needs, after that burqa stunt, she needs to be named. Pauline Hanson, if she says that you know they deserve nothing, they're abos, they live on land that belongs to us as well and they won't let us in, perhaps we should vote her out. Perhaps we should vote her out. You know, I mean, I know she won't be, not because the people that support her to the hilt. But those people are in the no camp, and this is the purpose of this video, is to try and get those people to think just a little bit. And if they get a kernel of doubt, to think further. Because Australia will be a much, much better society with a voice in Parliament. Now, you heard the criticism of the Makarrata, for instance, right? And treaty. And somebody said, one of the politicians, I can't remember who it was, it might have been Dutton, I don't know, said that treaties are between nations. Well, I've got news for him. In America, the Indian population were called nations. They were the Indian nations. And they entered into a number of treaties with the federal government of the United States. The federal government being that it was early days and racism wasn't exactly frowned upon, broke a lot of those treaties. Okay, so it doesn't have to be two nations. It can be a treaty between people. Okay, so why not? Why not enter into a treaty? You only agree to a treaty if you agree to a treaty. You're not forced into it, right? So put that one out of the way. Okay, they'll seek a treaty. That doesn't mean that they'll get a treaty. Okay, it depends what they ask. Depends what the treaty entails on their part. Depends what the government of the day thinks is a fair treaty. And a treaty can be broken. Right? A government can say this treaty isn't working for our society. Right? And maybe renegotiate a treaty or just cancel it altogether. There's no commitment to for a treaty to be permanent. It won't be in the Constitution. It'll be like you go into the bank and asking for a loan. The bank manager will say to you, okay, you have to give me $600 a week for me to give you this loan. That's a treaty, right? If you don't live up to that, I'll take your house. That's a treaty. Okay, it's a different form of treaty, but it's just as good as a treaty. Now, the other thing, the last thing I want to mention is, pardon me, I've got to look at my notes. Yes, the Makarrata. Makarrata. I don't know how many people know what the Makarrata means. We should all have looked it up by now. But it is an Aboriginal word that comes from the Arnhem Land people. That means that two clans, two societies, two groups of people that have been in conflict decide that they've got to sit down and figure out a way on how to coexist or live with each other in peace. Now, why wouldn't we agree to that? You know, a Makarrata. They want a Makarrata, they say. You know, how dare they? Well, Aboriginal people have been in conflict for a long, long time with Australian people, and Australian people, some, and recently, a very, very timely example of what some Australian people think of Aborigines. In Western Australia, I don't know what the group was, but there was an organisation that went over there and planted a row of trees on Aboriginal land. Now you think, well, what's wrong with that? They called it in honour of the Jubilee of the late Queen. Now, that would be akin to the same people go into the outskirts of Tel Aviv, plant a row of trees, and say, in honor of the Führer's birthday. That is the equivalent. You know, Aboriginal people want nothing to do with the monarchy. The monarchy destroyed lives to this day. Okay, they are right here in 1788. They committed, by all accounts, some of which are accessible in the archives of newspapers, they've committed massacres, and by all accounts 500 of them. The last massacre happened in 1928. It wasn't in the 1800s. You know, it's less than 100 years ago. So think about it. They would not want a thing to do with the monarchy. Now some, you know, that have come, like, you know, I don't know if it's, you know, if it actually applies to him, but you know, I'll give you an example. Warren Mundine, you know, he's gone to university, he's become a successful business person, he lives in the North Shore of Sydney, so he might have an affinity for the Queen. Right? That's fair enough. It's not been critical of anybody that has a Queen, an affinity with the former Queen. What I can't understand, coming from a place that solved its invasion, if you will, in the same fashion that people at Boston did with the Tea Party, kicked out the colonizers and took the country for themselves. Now Uruguay did the same. You know, they kicked the Spaniards out, had a bit of a problem with the Portuguese that thought they would take over, kicked them out as well, and the country is independent. Australia is not an independent country. Not whatsoever. You have a Governor General that advises the Queen or the King, the Regal, and has the power to sack a Prime Minister that we elect. That's not independence. How can a person way at the other side of the world say to Australia, you must sack that Prime Minister because my agent there says that you should sack him? It's not on. It shouldn't be on. But it's happened. And Australians raged over it. And now the people that raged over it are satisfied that they were on the right side of history. But the people that are on the right deride a lot of what went on, a lot of the reason why the rage occurred. But we are getting away from the subject, aren't we? My advice, my suggestion, not advice, I have no right to advise anyone, but my suggestion to the no vote is, if you watch this video, try to think about it, do a little bit of research on the internet, and see if some of the things that I said are true or not. Right? Now I might be mistaken about a couple of things that I said, but I guarantee you one thing, I'll try to tell the truth here. I am an Australian. I love this country more than I love Uruguay. I just happen to be born there. For a little while there I wore the uniform in this country. I worked for this country. I worked for companies that were working for this country. And I've always tried to be of service to this country. And I'd hate to see it dive into a situation that is not akin to America's Trump, or Trump's America, where division, misinformation, and the worship of an individual does away with the country that was once great. Now we are not quite great. I don't think we've ever been quite great, okay? But we've been pretty good, and we could be great. We could be one of the greatest countries on earth if we as a nation, as a people, regardless of color, regardless of origin, stop having to demonize people on sexuality basis, people on religious basis, right? People on color, people of financial means, or the lack thereof. We demonize people for political purposes. We allow politicians to do that. We vote, we pay them. We shouldn't allow them to do that. We shouldn't allow them to demonize us, because it is them today, tomorrow it will be you. But think of the country, vote as you feel, and good luck to us all. If you watched this far, thank you for listening. Bye-bye.